how we've supported is we've made mental health a core value of our PTA from the very beginning. Because when we talk about mental health, we're really talking about people, what their fears, their anxieties, their boundaries are. And you can't do anything at a PTA without people. So like operationally, is our bank close to the school so that volunteering isn't a chore? Are we taking time during our executive board meetings to check in with each other and making sure that the mental bandwidth matches the programs that we're going to run, and shifting responsibilities as needed throughout the year because life changes? Are we respecting volunteer and school staff life-work balance? So those are all things that we do operationally. And then with our programs, I think that a lot of people think that when you do a mental health program, you have to do this like really serious suicide prevention program. And that's really important. But really, mental health is in every single PTA program you could possibly offer. So like you do digital safety, you're talking about adolescent anxiety. You do healthy hydration, you're talking about the link between mental and physical health. And for us, like our most successful mental health program is game night. Everybody brings a board game from home and you play together. And it's successful because it's free. So there's no financial anxiety. It's inclusive. So everybody with every language is there. Nobody feels othered. You build community so that you don't feel lonely. There's laughter and there's joy. So your serotonin levels go up. That fights depression. You're building trust with your kids as you're playing with them. So when you have to have hard discussions down the line, you're prepared for them. So you take all those things together, you talk about them as you're planning the event, while you're having the event, and then when you're debriefing the event at the end, like maybe at a general association meeting, all those things are together. And then kick it up a notch, invite a third-party mental health or social emotional partner to come and play with your families. So they're there, they're seen, parents know them, whether or not they take a flyer from their table, it doesn't matter. They're getting to know parents when their guards are down and when they're in a joyful place. And I think just having those constant, open and authentic conversations about mental health during the high points and the low points makes it easier for people to see that their struggles are not alone. They're not alone in their struggles, that they're part of a greater community that wants them to be happy and healthy. And that they can be cared for.
At a meeting, they allow me time to speak to the parents and to the PTA members, or have the nurse come in and speak. Or they have done health nights where we had not only people working with physical health and eating well and support services in the community where they could get those supports if they don't have them. But also allowing us to talk about social emotional learning or mindfulness, coping skills, things like that, so that we're talking about all portions of the health, and supporting our students in a well-rounded manner. So that parent engagement and connection and team concept, that we're all in it, together. That my shirt says that too. We're together through it all. But how we're all supporting each other as a team and being proactive about student mental health, I think is so critical. And our PTA has been amazing during that. In fact, they've also taken on some trauma events that we had in our area. We had the October 1 Route 91 shooting, and our PTA took it upon themselves to have a family night where they painted rocks and they took them to the memorial and they laid them out. So there's evidence from our students, and it helped our students take control of their emotions, and it was a coping skill in itself. So doing those kind of things, I don't know if all parents and all PTA understand how much of an impact they can make with the students.
I'm going to talk today about how we implemented a wellness room at our school. To start off, we needed to know why a wellness room. And it really began with trying to figure out how we can do better for our students. We realized that previous practices really didn't account for any kind of stress reaction or emotional escalation for students. We've come to call it emotional temperatures getting high. So before, if a kid kind of acted out because he was stressed or emotionally elevated, they got to go sit in a corner of the copy room. And that really doesn't going to do anything to help these kids. So what we found is we really lacked just sort of a universal behavioral prevention model or treatment. And we started to ask around, look at what parents were saying, look at what teachers were saying, and try to do something a little bit better. Around this same time, an article was featured in our big state news organization that featured these wellness rooms that a district in southern Utah was putting together. And that really intrigued us. We had a lot of parents kind of email us and say, is this a possibility that we could do something like this? So it was on our minds. At the same time, our district provided enough funding for us to hire a behavioral specialist. A classroom opened up that was empty, and the real kicker was we received this COVID relief grant from National PTA. Everything came together, and we were ready to really do something more effective for these students. We've come to be really familiar with what a wellness room is, but some of you may not be as familiar, but we've come to see a wellness room as a dedicated space that's set aside. It's not a classroom. It's not where any other function is at the school. And it's set aside just for the purpose of relieving stress, relieving those emotions that children can go to. It's an optional thing. It's not a requirement. Students are never forced to go by a teacher. A teacher never suggests it as what they need to do before they can receive something. It's totally optional for the students. It's a way for them to recognize that they need a break and they need somewhere to go to deal with these emotions. I've included some pictures, but basically the format is a child will come in, they'll check in with the aide so the aide can kind of see where they're at when they begin to use the room. They're given an initial 10 minutes and they use a timer. They're choosing between lots of different things they can do in those 10 minutes. You can see in some of those shelves. There's books, there's coloring, sort of those adult coloring books, there's manipulatives like fidget toys, there's Play-Doh, there's lots of things they can do that's tactile or that's calming that they can use for those 10 minutes. There's a variety of seating, different ways that they can choose to sit or choose to be comfortable. There's aromatherapy diffusers, there's also a sound machine. So there's different things that really make the environment a set aside from what a normal classroom would be and really give them a break from the environment that they were in. So how did we begin? Basically, we wanted to make sure that what we did was supported by research that was effective, that we could rely on. So we sent our new behavioral specialist and our school counselor to a training done by Washington County School District. They sent them back with all the information that we needed to set this up. And that's where we started using that grant that we were given. We bought the materials, we furnished the room, we bought all of the tools that the children would need. And when the teachers came back, ready to open the school again, the teachers all got a training on understanding how to encourage students to use it. What was it for? The kind of emotional resiliency we were trying to teach through it. When school began, the students all got to come and tour the room. They all got to check everything out, go through what it would look like for them to come to the wellness room. We made videos, handouts for the families so that they could see exactly what was going on. We sent those out, and really we've continued to make that ongoing effort throughout the year to encourage students to continue to use it. And we felt like it's been a huge success. The room, not just at the beginning of the year when it was new, but has continued to be used. We have gotten a lot of data, understanding how the room was used, what times of the day, what days of the week. After spring break, there was an increase. So we started to see some patterns of when the children are using the rooms. You can see a little note there from a girl that loved the room and made her feel relaxed and calm. We've had parents say what a blessing it was for their students. We've had community members say, wow, how can we do more of this? And we've really gotten huge positive feedback that we're excited about. But we know it was just the beginning, and we can continue to improve and work on it to make it more accessible, more helpful, and more impactful for our students in our community.
Something that was really great for us is that we send out a newsletter weekly. Actually, our principal sends it out, but we were able to partner with her and make sure that parents knew that they could also get that information from our webpage or another avenue. So if there was a working parent or a parent that couldn't come that evening to our PTA meeting where we would be sharing out, they would be given another opportunity to get the information that we were sharing. And so I'm going to go on to my next one. The types of community services that we felt after looking at the surveys our families most needed were family counseling, behavior management, mentoring services, inpatient care, and medical diagnosis. So when we talk about family counseling, we're talking about counseling not only for the student, but also for their family. And so we wanted to be able to find care where a whole entire family, if they felt like their whole family needed some help, that we could be able to give that. Because here at school, we have a counselor for the student, but maybe not mom and dad or brother and sister. So we wanted to be able to have that unity available. Behavior management. Many of our families needed help with figuring out, well, are the things that I'm doing as a parent helping with the behavior of my student, or is there something else I need to be doing? Mentoring services. We were able to help some of our students. Maybe they needed or did not have a father figure, or if it was that they did not have any siblings, just someone that they could interact with and truly encourage them, and they would have that person that would meet with them weekly. And then we had inpatient care, and this is something a lot of times, especially at the school site, we are not really concentrating on, but some of our families really needed help with finding some place they could get that type of care for children. So we wanted to make sure if there was a connection that we can make or help those parents with that, we did. And then medical diagnosis. We know that many times as children are growing, some parents start noticing differences or areas of concern. And we wanted to make sure that they knew that their pediatrician, of course, was their first area that they could start with, but also there were other areas that they could go to that would support after that medical diagnosis, some care and help. So one of our success stories for our PTA is that we have a local Boys and Girls Club here in Norman. And not only does this local Boys and Girls Club pick up from our school after school, but they also provide family counseling and individual counseling to our families that are there. So they're a whole, I would like to say, a whole service in one. So they pick up the kid from school, the child does aftercare there, and they're available from the time we get out of school at 2:50. They're available from 2:50 till 6 o'clock, and they help with homework. They do their counseling session. They do some individual encouragement for the students, but it is like a one-stop stop. And just to get feedback from our families, especially this year, we had a family that was just so encouraged because they started to see growth in their student, and they were able to look back and say, you know, this was really the best opportunity because they were having issues financially being able to afford counseling. They didn't have transportation. And then it was just nobody they could find that was consistent with servicing their child. And here we were able to make this connection with local Boys and Girls Club, and they were able to fulfill all the needs for the parents and take away all of the things that were hindering them from being able to receive services. So we're very happy about the partnership with Boys and Girls, and we're very happy that we are actually seeing success with our students.
Our PTA received the basic grant and the continuation grant for mental health and social emotional support. And this is me, and this is where my journey started during the summer, applying for the grant with the burning question, how can we cope? Lockdown, social, physical isolation, fear, worry, anxiety, depression, racism, violence, divisiveness, social and civil upheaval. Racism in our health. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics acknowledged that racism is a public health issue that really affects us all. And here we are, really struggling at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, our district in Glendale has been wonderful in providing traditional mental health services for our community. And for the students, it's not so much what they asked for, but what they expressed to us. As an example, this is from a high school student, and he talked about having these internalized struggle without an outlet. And for parents, they wanted at the gate moments, that time in the morning or afternoon where they dropped off and picked up their kids and were able to interact and connect with other parents. So, social emotional learning. We created programs and events that focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and art, having that creative expression, a healthy outlet for stress and new ways to be able to connect. Now, being mindful of the diversity, the equity and inclusion, we fostered community collaborations with artists of color to lead by example, and happily incorporated the Reflections program. I was also able to reach out to local nonprofit organizations that I had previous experience with and worked with in the past, and reached out to personal friends and friends in my circle who helped to make other important connections. I was also able to slowly build relationships and work with many others in our school district as the year progressed. And we had Artapalooza, a night of art event for the whole district, 3 workshops, which included collaging, poetry, songwriting for the students, and a community building art session for the parents. Now, with all of these events, the engagement was still challenging. A parent told me that her artistic child had Zoom fatigue and didn't want to participate in anything else after school, and she loved art. So, what next? I worked with my principal to bring the Diversity Designed by Adversity Assembly to the students during school time, and it was amazing. And I have to thank my principal, Sherry Cully, for being a co-conspirator and advocating for social emotional learning. We had great responses, and we took what worked really well and we did it bigger with a continuation grant and organized an assembly for the district-wide for all elementary school students. And I have to say, thank you to Zoom. So with the phase 2 grant, we engaged around 1,000, and with a continuation grant, we engaged around 10,000. So with the lessons learned, we were able to significantly broaden our reach with the second grant. And from the workshops, oh my goodness, we saw confidence, strength, and self-love of an 8-year-old poet. Parents responded that I love that it was directly dealing with racist imagery, social justice, and representation in a way that was accessible for my first grader, and many important messages of love and acceptance. And we also got a message from a parent who has an autistic son who used his communication device to let us know that he loved the assembly, and that one was a tearjerker. We received responses from teachers with students with special needs. We received messages from the students saying that you taught me that everybody matters and that I've been really stressed out, so the assembly really helped. And also what we were able to do in the assembly was incorporate a hands-on art project that any age student could do. The students also learned about self-love and empowerment. So moving forward, collect more data, starting with the teachers for future events. And the big takeaway for me in building connections and relationships is that if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. And it really became my mantra. I got a lot of no's, but I also got the yeses that I needed.
So at Alki, we took creative programming as a focus to support healthy minds of our students battling isolation and social distancing. Wellness Wednesdays is a monthly virtual space for families to connect and create gratitude journals, future jars. And so kids could see that there is still positive things in their life that they can be thankful for. Casting a broader net, we felt that adults needed love too. So we held parent-to-parent listening hours hosted by our board members to connect with families and caregivers to share how the pandemic is affecting their families. We were able to make referrals if needed to the social worker at our school. COVID almost took our annual school musical. We were amazed by the level of participation in a virtual musical that our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders produced. It was called Super Happy Awesome News. The message was timely and explained how character strengths aren't about ignoring the negatives. It shows how negative feelings help us overcome life's inevitable adversaries. For example, you can't be brave without first being scared, and you can't show perseverance without wanting to quit. It's not realistic for kids to always be super happy and awesome, and that's perfectly fine. Next slide, please. Family First Fridays hosted bingo, family feud, and Wheel of Fortune family game nights. We partnered with our school counselor and committee for children to create an anti-bullying campaign featuring Captain Compassion, who's a cartoon character that taught our kids how to be an upstander instead of a bystander when they see somebody getting bullied. We also hosted our second internet safety event and held a COVID-19 vaccine Q&A that was hosted by a medical provider in our community. If you're interested in bringing any of these programs to your school, you can reach out to me and I can provide graphics, cut sheets, and event planning worksheets to help make that happen. Next slide, please. To fill our funding gaps due to COVID, we applied for all the grants offered by National PTA. We were able to secure both phases of the COVID relief funding, community relief funding, and built a food pantry to support our community as food insecurity skyrocketed during the pandemic. In phase 2, we curated a second wave of virtual programming to support mental health of our students. It included a gold medalist X Games BMX riders virtual assembly about perseverance, and we invite local elementary schools to participate in the event by negotiating up to being viewed by 1,000 participants. We also coordinated with our school's art team to curate Art and Fitness Week. This reached a large number of our families because programming was included in every student's Seesaw account, and some events happened during school's in-person instructional hours. The program included martial arts classes, dance classes, cooking classes, and an art project that all students will contribute to. We are ending the year with a bang, and we restored an event that was canceled due to COVID last year. It was made possible by a grant from National PTA and Bayer, and we had a great, successful science festival. We offered all 3 models to include a virtual live event, an at your own pace event, and a tech-free version for screen time-weary families. We see value and plan to make more options available for families so we can meet them where they are and how they feel comfortable to participate.